David, very good to have you with us on the programme. So let me ask you about, you've resigned, the whip was withdrawn from you from the Conservative Party, so you're no longer and you left the Cabinet some time ago. Amber Rudd resigned from the Cabinet over the weekend. Do you hear that more resignations are likely from the Cabinet?
It's possible, but I don't want to make any predictions as to whether more resignations will follow. It is always a difficult decision to decide to resign from the Cabinet. As you say, I resigned from the Cabinet in July. Amber Rudd resigned this weekend. There's always that balance. What influence can you have when you're sitting around the table? You can contribute towards making the right decisions, but in the end, there comes a point when enough is enough. That was the point that Amber reached this weekend.
Do you see a way back into the Conservative Party for you? I've heard different views from different members of that 21, or the Gaukewood squad, as they're referred to by some. Different views. Some saying they'll fight to maintain their place in the Conservative Party, stand as Conservative members. Others saying no, that's not going to happen, and the number 10 clearly has their view. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm obviously not in a position to speak for everybody, but the impression I get of most of us is that we would like to continue to be Conservative MPs. Some of us have been Conservative members and for decades. Kenneth Clarke has been a Conservative MP for nearly 50 years. We'd like to be able to continue to do that, but we, I think, have a problem with the strategy that is being pursued by the government at the moment. It is a strategy that it seems to be deliberately divisive. It seems to be trying to transform the Conservative Party into being the no-deal party, and that is an approach that is not just going to alienate a few members of Parliament, but is also going to alienate millions of long-standing Conservative voters. And that is one of the problems here, and it is a policy, a no-deal Brexit, that is irresponsible, that would leave this country poorer, less secure and less united than it has been hitherto.
So you and others are clear that you don't want to give Boris Johnson the general election he wants unless no deal is taken off the table. So what is it exactly that is your criteria around that? It looks as if that bill is going to get royal assent today. Is that enough for you to say yes to a general election? Will you vote for that general election later on?
Well, what we need is not just the bill to get royal assent, but we also need to ensure that the extension is delivered.
And isn't that in the EU's hands, though?
Well, the government does all that it can do to achieve that extension. And that means Parliament will need to sit at the end of October. And without that, we run the risk of almost anything happening. So I think it is right that we seek that extension. Look, I'm one of those that's voted consistently to leave the European Union. I do think the referendum result should be implemented, but it should be implemented in a responsible way, and that requires us to get a deal, and that's what the Prime Minister should do. He should focus on getting a deal, not on, if you like, political game playing and empty threats. He needs to get on, set out his proposals, set out exactly how he wants to leave with a deal, have realistic red lines, and get to Brussels and negotiate.
Is your understanding that not enough? Well, I mean, Amber Rudd said that 80 to 90% of the government's time is being taken up by preparing for no deal and not actually in negotiation. We've heard a little bit about what the government wants on the backstop, but the EU suggests that the talks are not substantive. It's simply nothing is being done on the actual negotiations. Is that right?
I think that's exactly right. And so the reports that come back from all the EU member states is essentially, well, we're asking for proposals, but we're not hearing them. We don't know what they are. There have been no real meetings. The British officials have turned up at meetings when there's been an expectation of proposals, but only to turn out to be a sort of a general chit-chat.
Are there any proposals, though, lurking in somebody's safe in Westminster? It's
a very good question. I mean, supposedly there were some proposals for how to replace the Northern Ireland backstop that were worked out last week. Then all it emerged was essentially it was the old set of proposals with some of the difficult paragraphs deleted. It was a work of about 5 minutes. I think they changed the cross-references, but that was pretty well it. Now, if that is the sum of the effort after 6 weeks of the new government, then it seems to me, whatever the Prime Minister's intentions, and I believe he's sincere that he wants to get a deal, the fact is that the work isn't happening, the proposals aren't out there. The work isn't being done. The red lines are unrealistic. And, we are just heading inevitably towards no deal, but for the fact that Parliament intervened, and that's why Parliament intervened last week.